Welcome to Apocalypse Apocrypha. I'm your host, JJ Sherdy, and this is the podcast where I discuss all things post-apocalyptic. Alright, episode 7, and we're returning to our usual schedule with book 5. So, before we get to that, a few updates. So, in big news, I have finished the first draft of the prepper novel that I was working on. I'm going to let it sit for about a week before I go back and, do the edits, and then send that off to the company. It's very much not my usual sort of story, but I don't hate what I wrote, which sounds like a good thing, but it might not be, because if I don't hate it, it might not be prepper fiction. That's a horrible thing to say. But anyway, I'm going to take a break. Not so much mentally or creatively. I'm raring to go with a bunch of projects, but in my soul. In other news, I don't know if I mentioned this last time, but I actually had a really good idea for a Fallout game set in Australia. And I looked online, and there's a bunch of people who've tried to do this, just in their personal lives, with their friends around the table, role-playing and whatnot. And they're not that good from what I've seen mostly. Most of the people seem to include the Brotherhood and the Super Mutants and the Enclave. And they're all very much American factions, and it's why would they be in Australia? So I decided that, I don't have enough on my plate, so I'll just do this as well. And I sort of got tinkering with an idea, and then I was like, wait, why am I working on someone else's IP when I'm a writer? I can just make my own. So yeah, I've decided to make a Fallout clone. Might as well just admit that from the start, which, I'm okay with. I'll make it my own thing, but, that is what it is. And yeah, so that's going to be on the back burner as well, coming up with ideas for that. Other projects demand my attention at this point, so that won't eventuate for a long time, but I'm thinking about it. Speaking of role-playing news, my copies of Machine Gods of the Noxian Expanse arrived. It's a role-playing game by Black Oath Studios. It's pretty interesting. It's basically that quote of any sufficiently advanced technology is indistinguishable from magic, and that's just been turned into a whole role-playing game, so it looks interesting. I'm liking the artwork. The setting seems unique, so I'm pretty keen to dive into that and check it out. But speaking of that break I was mentioning earlier, because I've got some time on my hands where I just need to not be focusing on this prepper novel, I started making my character for Atomic Shadows. So that's been interesting. It's been good to just sort of sit down and just do something fun and not just, devote all my free time to work. So yeah, I'm just making a cool character, which is very relaxing, I must say. But anyway, let's move on to the main event, shall we? I don't need your permission, this is my show. Okay, so today we're going to be looking at Edge of Collapse by Kyla Stone. It's currently sitting at 4.4 stars with 30,061 ratings. Now, for those of you who've listened to my first episode, back then it was sitting at 27,470. So, that's basically 6-7 months ago, so 2,500 reviews in that amount of time is definitely not bad. So, the plot outline of this story is that an EMP knocks out the US power grid. Never heard that one before. But get this, it frees a woman from a rape dungeon. Yes, you heard correct. And she teams up with a ex-Special Forces vet to make it home. Yeah, it's interesting. So the setting is rural Michigan, and basically it's just a snow level from GoldenEye. So, time for characters. Hannah is the female lead. She was once strong-willed and independent, but her life was taken off track by getting knocked up and then having a son. And then she was kidnapped by a psycho, so, both equally disruptive. Liam, he's a ultra-protective ex-Special Forces guy. He's got some weird stuff going on with his twin brother's wife, but you get the vibe that they're dead by the time the story starts. Ghost, this is the canine companion, and he's basically a fully-fledged character in the story. He's really, really detailed, so he's actually kind of cool. Cece, Kiki, I don't know how to pronounce it. She's a short-lived, independent, older female mentor to Hannah. And there's a guy called Pike. He's basically the rapey psycho. Okay, so chapter 1 is Hannah. Now, the story starts with her having been kept in a basement prison by some guy for several years now. The power goes out, and the EMP seems to have freed her. Now, she's got a husband and son somewhere. We find out more about them as the story goes on. She's already talking about rationing her food out, which, at this point in time, it already feels a bit too much like a prepper, which is fine to think it, but I felt like the word usage here was a bit off. There's a guard dog outside just barking all the time. She's sort of picturing it as this big monster, but knowing that it's a prepper story, you kind of get the idea that it's not. There's a quote, to exert his indomitable will over every aspect of her pitiful life. So one thing in this book is that they really talk up how much of a dangerous psycho this guy is. But at the same time, like, he's just kidnapped a woman and keeps her in like a sex dungeon. So he's not so much like a big scary threat. I mean, he's scary, but it's more like he's just like a loser. I don't know, like maybe that's just me. So indomitable will, I don't know. Never really came across that way. Yeah, so her hands drop to her rounded baseball-sized belly. So at this point I was questioning, are they implying she's pregnant from this guy? Because yeah, that's like a sex slave type situation. And that's exactly what it turns out to be. So kind of murky territory here for a prepper story, but interesting. Not nice, but it's interesting. Even though there's been an EMP and everything else in the room has gone out, she doesn't try the door. So they pass this off as like her being like too emotionally and mentally broken from her like capture that she doesn't even try to escape. Like she's tried a few times in the past, but it's always gone against her, so she doesn't even try now. But at the same time, you know she's going to try eventually, and they're just sort of just dragging it out, like keeping us here, so she can like fuss and fret about it. So that was kind of annoying. Chapter 2 is Hannah again. She mentions maternity clothes, which upgrades this from upgrades or downgrades, depending on how you look at it. This from a rape dungeon to a breeding dungeon, which is just all kinds of freaky. She's got a kid called Milo and a husband called Noah out there in the world. She's from a place called Falls Creek in southwest Michigan. The captor threatened her family. You know, if you try and escape, I'm going to go kill your family. He broke her will to kill him, but not her will to survive. Yeah, that keeps happening. They keep mentioning that she's stubborn, which, you know, I guess is a good character trait to have. It's always reliable. A character that doesn't give up. Sure, why not? Yeah, she finally tries to open the door at the end of Chapter 2. They could have dragged that on for longer, but they didn't, so, you know, not too bad. Chapter 3 is Hannah again. She's abandoning everything in the room to escape, which, you know, it's a prison, so why not? She's freaking out for a few pages. She gets upstairs and she's blinded by the daylight, which was kind of just an annoying thing to happen. Like, she's just wandering around half blind. I mean, she had light down there, so I don't know, would daylight affect you differently from like a normal light? I don't know. But yeah, it was a very short chapter, thankfully. Basically just her freaking out and going blind. Chapter 4 is Hannah again. The chapter opens focusing on how really broken her body is, but she's pushing through. So that's a big thing in the story. Like, she's been physically abused for a few years and her body is like legit messed up. But they always focus on how she's, you know, forcing her way through. They spend the first page and a half just looking for scissors so she can make a blindfold, just to dim the light so she can see. Wasn't interesting. She starts gathering supplies so she can survive outside in the winter. She steals his clothes to survive. The word supplies gets used a lot. She eats some beef jerky. She knows all the names of the trees, which I made a note here, but this gets used over and over and over in this story. She just knows the names of all the trees, which I guess cool, why not? And she sees some movement outside. I made a note that it better not be a fake out. Okay, chapter 5 is Pike, the bad guy. So he's out buying flowers for his mum because, you know, if she's happy, his life is easier, which, you know, not exactly a great opener for like the scary psycho of your story. He hates Christmas, but everyone else is a fool for liking it. He's an asshole. He's a prison guard in Baroda, Michigan, and he's a volunteer cop, but only for the perks. He doesn't actually like, you know, helping people. Yeah, he's in a florist buying flowers for his mum, and a car comes crashing through the florist, and he just dives out of the way. He came off as very sort of like cowardly in this scene, which sort of got me thinking from the very start that like this wasn't like a legit psycho. I couldn't figure out if he was like just poorly written or he was like really well written and like he's not actually a psycho, he's just someone who operates like one, but he's really just like a coward. Anyway, the car that came crashing through the window, the car died obviously because the EMP went off and started sliding on the ice and the driver just freaked out. Pike doesn't check on anyone because, you know, people aren't his problem. He's cold, but he's not brave. So that's something I sort of made a note of here at the start. So yeah, he just steals the flowers and walks out amid the chaos, which, you know, why not? Just steal some flowers. He keeps referring to everyone else as fools. I sort of got the impression the author was going for like that, you know, sort of narcissistic, psychotic, sort of like, oh, everyone else is dumb except for me, which, you know, I guess. I had an ex-roommate like that. He sort of sees like people checking their phones and it's like, Pike wasn't stupid. The power grid had nothing to do with cars or phones. I'm not stupid. I know the power grid doesn't charge my car. Yeah. Yeah, so this is where I made the note. Like, he's written like a guy who thinks he's smart, but isn't. So I wasn't sure if this was intentional or not. But yeah, so he's the guy with the cabin holding Hannah. So he's racing back to check on his breeding sow, whatever. Okay, so chapter 6 is Hannah. So the guard dog outside is something called a Great Pyrenees mountain dog. I don't know if I said that correctly. It basically looks like a giant golden retriever, I guess. So it turns out she's not just pregnant. She's actually 7 to 8 months pregnant, which is, really far along. Yeah. I kind of felt like that was an odd number to choose. Like, they sort of made it that number, so like, there's no choice in the matter. That's a very specific sort of like down the line number to choose. Yeah, so she gets outside, and it's like she's drawn to the guard dog. It says almost against her will. So like, there's this giant guard dog who's just losing its shit at her, and she's just drawn to it against her will. And it's like, this explains why you got kidnapped, lady. Your threat detection is just way off. So apparently she used to sing to pass the time. She loved music, and she majored in music education in college. And that's the career life path she got pulled away from because she got married and had a kid. Not necessarily in that order. There's a quote here. The thick metal chain looked wrong on such a... Oh, I'm going to leave this in. There's a lot of quotes like this. The thick metal chain looked wrong on a dog so regal. Again, this dog is like losing it. And she's like, you majestic beast. Oh. Yeah. Anyway, so she's viewing the dogs in like the same sort of situation as her, and she refuses to leave it. Kind of a weird, short chapter, but I got through it. Chapter 7 is Hannah. She's feeding the guard dog her beef jerky. Sure, why not? She keeps mentioning how insane it is to be feeding the dog, and how she shouldn't be doing it, but she keeps doing it. Again, that term I found out a while back, lampshading. You can't just draw attention to an absurdity and just hope it goes away. It doesn't work like that. She keeps mentioning that she should have like let go of its chain, but she didn't. Eventually she lets it go, and she's like screaming at it to run away, get away. This isn't the greatest introduction to this character either. I don't think very highly of this woman, just like I don't think the psycho is particularly scary. Yeah, so the dog runs away. I was half expecting it to like stop with a tree line and give like a forlorn look back and then just disappear into the trees. I made a note here. I'm like, oh gee, I wonder if this thing will reappear in an hour of greatest need. It does. And yeah, the chapter ends with a quote. And if she wanted to stay free, Hannah Sheridan had to run. Okay, so I will say, this book is actually half decent. It's pretty good. There's stuff going on here I have to get into later, but like one thing this book does really, really well is its chapter endings. Like they hook you for the next one. It's a bit corny, but it gets you there. Chapter 8 is Hannah. She grabs a wood axe, which is, smart. She gives a rundown of the items she's stealing to make her bug-out bag. She gives a list of the food she's stealing. This is all just typical prepper stuff. Just, typically they don't steal it. She's going to go on a cross-country ski trip to escape, which, okay, sure, why not? There's a quote here. Part of her wanted to burn the cabin to the ground, but that would take extra time, and that was a luxury she didn't have. Said right after she'd wasted all that time on the dog. Apparently she'd grown up in some place referred to as like the Upper Peninsula, skiing, snowmobiling, ice fishing, but her dad was disappointed that she didn't like hunting. Another quote. Her parents weren't survivalists or preppers, but they'd taught her how to stay alive in the harsh northern winters. Kind of a weird thing to say. Don't worry guys, they weren't preppers, but they taught me all this prepper stuff, so it's cool. They really start laying it on thick that she used to be tough, but that she's been broken down and doesn't recognize herself anymore. Because she's going to have to rediscover her old self if she wants to save herself. And yeah, at this point I started noticing that the chapters are all very, very short, which will play into something that pops up later. Chapter 9 is Pike. So apparently he smokes clove cigarettes he's ordered online from Indonesia. It's a really weird point that sort of goes nowhere. Best I can figure is that like it creates like a really distinct and unique smell that she can pick up on. Because if it was just like any old cigarette, it would just blend in with the background. But clove cigarettes from Indonesia, that sort of stands out. So it just felt weird. He stole a working car from a trucker, but then like who would stop? There's been like an EMP and you're like, okay, I'll stop for this hitchhiker. No. So apparently he pretends to be a cop when he's in his, prison guard uniform. And he mentions that he did the old like, toss me the keys and get out of the truck. As like, it's the usual fake cop spiel. Does that ever actually happen in real life? Like, does that happen in America? Like, do police just commandeer vehicles? I don't know. Like, if I'm in Australia and like a cop's like, get out of the car, I'm like, no. Like, what is this? I'm not giving you my car. Yeah, so this guy's like a pretty typical psycho. He loves to hunt people for the sport of it. So, he's one of those ones. Which is actually kind of interesting here because, like, she knows how to survive in the wilderness. He knows how to hunt. It's the perfect setup. Match made in heaven. He's never met an equal. Like, he's killed everyone he's hunted, obviously, because he's alive. He's currently kidnapped, like, a housewife. And he's like, I've never met an equal. And you're kidnapping, like, housewives. Like, it's not a brag, man. Kidnap a cop or a soldier or something. I don't know. Again, at this point, I couldn't tell if he was written to be a hypocrite or if the writer just didn't realize they were doing that. I think this is the problem with exploring an antagonist in a story who's meant to be scary, because if you give them full chapters, you are seeing like every single detail of their experience, and so you sort of lose that mystery about them. Typically, like, you wouldn't know what they're doing, where they are, why they're doing what they're doing. But if they got whole chapters dedicated to them, you know everything, and like that mystique, that, the terror of, who knows what's coming after me, it's just gone. And like, again, this guy doesn't sound scary. He kind of sounds like a bitch. Like, he's just some weird incel. Yeah, okay. And yeah, then he just starts listing off guns. So, again, typical prepper stuff. Chapter 10 is Hannah. They make a big deal about her skiing while she's pregnant, which is sort of like, I guess that sounds impressive if you've never been around like a pregnant woman before. But my wife went hiking like the morning she gave birth. Like, we were out hiking and like everyone's like freaking out because it was Taiwan. So like, yeah, skiing, whatever. She started talking about how this place was cold and remote, but her hometown looked, tasted, smelled, and felt different. Maybe she's got some like sixth sense for like cold winter environments or something. I don't know. It was like a weird point. They do that thing where like they italicize the name. Well, sorry, the pronoun. That word's been ruined. Yeah, so she doesn't refer to him as like Pike or something. She's just like him. And it's just like, he's not fucking Voldemort, okay? You can say his name. I didn't want to run into him. So there's a cool little prepper tip about clothing in cold weather. It's just cold. So clean, avoid overheating, loose and layers, and dry. They couldn't get the A in there, so, whatever. It's still pretty good. That's a useful tip. I never thought about the overheating thing. Like, 'cause, yeah, you start to sweat, and suddenly your clothes get wet, and suddenly you start getting really cold. Yeah, again, like one of the cliffhangers at the end here is something or someone was out there. Like, again, I said this book does good cliffhangers at the end of chapters, which is true, it does, but the chapters are like 5 pages long, so it's just like cliffhanger, 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 cliffhanger. It gets a bit much, but they are good. But yeah, a bit much. Chapter 11 is Hannah. She keeps talking about the different types of trees. The dog came back, big shock there. And yeah, the chapter ends with, someone was coming. It ends the exact same way as the last chapter. Very short chapter. Chapter 12, Hannah again. She has a run-in with the guy, but it doesn't really go anywhere. Like, she sort of just hides and he goes past. Her last thought of the chapter is, this is only the beginning. See, that's something stories say, not real people. Like, there's this post-apocalyptic TV show called Falling Skies. It's about like aliens invading Earth and occupying Earth. And one of the seasons ends with like new aliens arriving. And one of the characters is like, lights in his face and he's sort of squinting and he's like, it's like nothing we've ever seen. Like, normal people don't talk like that. Oh, like, just imagine some psycho is stalking you and like you just narrowly manage to escape and you're skiing away and you're like, this is only the beginning. Chapter 13 is Hannah. She's skiing onward past dusk. It's dangerous, but she wants to put some distance between her and the guy. They keep pointing out how far she's fallen from her past self, but the point of that is to increase her inevitable rise. The greater the downfall, the greater the triumphant return, whatever. I'm sure there's a real quote about that, but I can't think of it right now. You get the idea. There's a quote, if she wanted to stay alive in this beautiful but inhospitable wilderness. Yeah, they really keep talking up the natural elements of the story. Yeah, she starts setting up a impromptu camp by a felled tree. And there's another sentence here, well, two. It was kind of a weird one. She's like, it sort of says, she needed the fire. It wasn't optional. So the story has weirdly declarative statements. I guess it's just like a style of writing. Apparently you can use Doritos as tinder. It's an interesting prepper tip, was pretty smoothly inserted. Kind of concerning for Doritos, though. She warms some rocks to use as a heat source later on. Another good prepper tip. Apparently you shouldn't hydrate with snow because the energy required to melt it causes further dehydration and potential hypothermia. Good to know. Yeah, at this point it feels like too many prepper tips coming in quick succession. She melts ice in water, makes it easier and protects the pan. Good to know, I guess. She's pregnant with a monster's kid. She's clearly been raped. He's obviously a psycho, but this is for a conservative audience. So I kind of had this thought at this point. I'm like, she's going to have the kid. Or like accidentally lose it conveniently. But I'm betting she'll have the kid in like a later book or something, and she'll just like choose to raise it. She swaps out socks to avoid trench foot. More prepper tips. So the chapter ends with her knowing down to her core that he's going to come for her. They keep trying to build up the horror of this guy, but again, like we've had chapters of him, and it just doesn't sort of match up. Chapter 14 is Pike. See, straight away we get a chapter with him. He makes it back to his cabin, and he just starts stomping around in like a hissy fit because she's obviously escaped. It doesn't make him come across as like a competent antagonist. They've given him OCD, like he's a control freak. Like, why is that such like a common psycho trope? He calls her a slut. Super weird take for a guy with a rape dungeon. That slut. I can't even. Oh, God. And yeah, it ends with Gavin Pike was a hunter. It was time to hunt. Oh, help me. Chapter 15 is back to Hannah. It's day 2 now. So all that before was day 1. This is day 2 now. So apparently the temperature is hovering around 0. And I was like, it's not that bad. Wait a minute. This is America. They do Fahrenheit, not Celsius. Oh, God. That's super bad. Yeah, there's more tree naming. Because again, this book loves trees. There's a quote. She would find something. She had to. Yeah, again, very emotional, direct language. Not a lot of subtlety here. It's just very like just gut punch dialogue and descriptors. She skis all day and dwells on how hard it's been for her. You know, because she's been in a dungeon for the past few years. She gets hit by another snowstorm, and it ends with like a description of a really dramatic nightmare that she has. Sure, why not? Chapter 16 is back to Pike. There's more tree talk, and it's just the psycho tracking Hannah, thinking about how he's going to take advantage of the EMP. Really short chapter. Chapter 17 is Hannah. It's day 3 now. She's stuck on a snowstorm until mid-afternoon. She skis down a hill and hits a rock and busts her right leg and spirals into depression. That's it. Chapter 18 is Hannah. She wakes up. Some random guy finds her, and she's obviously distrustful because it's a guy. She spits blood on the ground, and she screams out a primal scream. You know, if you're trying to evade someone who's tracking you, spitting blood, like red, onto white snow and screaming, probably not good ideas. It's a very emotionally charged novel. We'll explore why later. Chapter 19 is Hannah again. She meets the dog. There's a weird dog whisperer scene. She frees the dog from its collar. She prays. There's a lot of character being put into this dog. He's very much a main character of the story. And you know, he's actually pretty cool. No complaint here. Chapter 20 is Liam. Ooh, 20 chapters in, and who's this mysterious stranger? Yeah, so he's Liam Coleman, 34. He was in Chicago, seeing his twin brother when the EMP hit. And yeah, it seems like the city was pretty bad. You know, I don't know if that's because of the EMP or if it's just because it's Chicago. I don't know. I went there once. It's actually not that bad. Well, the parts I visited. He seems to have some demons from his escape. He's a loner, wants to be left alone, as loners are wont to do. He says some gas stations are still open, but they only provide gas to first responders, law enforcement, and government. So that's a pretty good bit of world building there. There's a quote, "A nation is only 9 miles away from anarchy." So that's a pretty widely spread quote. And it's actually kind of annoying because I'm going to use that in one of my upcoming books. But the thing for me is that like my character has a fascination with the number 9. And so I have to use it. And so it just irks me that it's been used in this book. Yeah, more tree talk. He's got a Gerber MK2 tactical knife and a Glock 19. I don't know what those words mean. That's a very specific knife. And I'm Australian. Yeah, so he's a prepper trying to get back to his homestead. There's a quote here. I'll try my best, I'm sorry. Liam would never steal from anyone outright. He wasn't a thief. But he had no qualms about taking what he needed from the numerous empty houses along his route. My brother in Christ, that's being a thief. Oh my God. Again, like, I don't understand the prepper morality when it comes to theft. there's no like clear line between looting, theft, and what's just acceptable to take. I don't think there is a line. I think they just do whatever they want for the story to work. Like, oh god. Yeah, so he's ex-special forces. He says nature and survival are easy. It's people that are the wild card. Seems he's lost some people in his escape already. He's hurt and he's wounded and he doesn't want to open up to others, so he's going to let the main character die by freezing to death. Obviously, he's going to go back to Ghetto. But, you know, again, like her not wanting to test the door with the EMP, we have to have like a chapter or two of him, you know, just stressing out over this before he goes back and actually does it. Chapter 21 is Liam again. He's found a cabin and he's going to stay there the night. There's a quote. A locked door posed no problem with his skill set, and then he proceeds to just jimmy the lock. Does that qualify as a skill set? Could have at least picked the lock or something, I don't know. There's another quote. Siding with the Glock, he sliced the pie, searching carefully from 9 to 3 like on a watch. That felt really goofy. I don't know, there's something weird about like civilians, you know, me being a civilian, trying to like incorporate military lingo and stuff. They put all like the significance on the really weird bits. Because like obviously they don't know what, you know, is actually important. And so they sort of focus on like this, he sliced the pie. Oh. Just imagine like Call of Duty. Ramirez, slice the pie. No, wait, that's Modern Warfare. Oh, well, whatever. Anyway, yeah, he's very competent, but he's wounded. He needs healing from a special lady. Obviously, these two are going to get together. There's this really big scene where like he's scoping out the cabin. He's sort of, you know, making sure it's safe, and he busts in, checks all his angles and under the table and under the bed, and yeah, there's nothing there. Total waste of time. Then he lists out the contents of his go bag, because again, it's a prep story. And the chapter ends with, the woman was pregnant. And this is why he has to go back for her. So again, like, no subtlety. They've really got to make sure that, like, you know what's going on. I guess because, like, this is his big moment where he's coming to that decision to go back for her. He could say it, but, like, don't waste our time with this stuff. Come on. Chapter 22 is Hannah. She's wandering around the snow at night with a busted leg. They're letting us know that she's doomed. But obviously, like, we just read a chapter where Liam is going to come save her. So, like, why? She's wandered off the road. You know, they're really dragging at her, fumbling and dying in the snow. Like, they're making a really big deal out of it. But again, we know it's not going to happen. The dog knew she needed him. Somehow, he just knew. Again, the dog was kind of cool. But I feel bad for the dog. Like, he's a cool dog, but he's in a bad story. So she calls the kiddo in her, like, a parasite. There's very, like, lefty language there. So that was an interesting choice. She imagines her actual kid telling her to come home. You know, like she's got a husband and kid still. So, you know, she imagines her actual kid, not the rape dungeon kid. And then, yeah, obviously Liam shows up. And she says, I need Milo. But nothing comes of it. Like, do you guys not have Milo in the USA? It's like a drink from Australia. It's like a malt drink, like powder. You put it in milk and mix it up and like it stays on the top and you can eat that with a spoon. Really popular with kids. You can't just say, I need Milo, and then not make a joke about it. It just felt weird. But again, maybe you guys in America don't have Milo. So, whatever. Chapter 23 is Liam. They're really ramming home that this dog is loyal, intelligent, and, you know, dedicated to Hannah. Because obviously this man's just come along and grabbed her, and this guard dog is just losing its shit once again. But, you know, they're going to become friends. He carries a rubber doorstop in his go bag. That's actually a really good prepper tip. Like, just carry a doorstop with you. Like, if you're in a room and you don't know if it's secure, like, you can just sort of chuck that under the door and, like, it's not going to stop everything, but, like, it might help. He's got cotton balls soaked in petroleum jelly. They'll burn for 4 minutes. It's a good prepper tip. There's a quote. Liam didn't need to wonder what the dog saw in him. He knew what he was, who he was. I would have switched that around, like who he was, what he was. I feel like alluding to the fact that him being a killer is the sort of the big thing there. So you would have put that second, not... Although maybe I get the feeling something happened between him and his brother's wife. So maybe that's what he's like taking as the more serious issue here. But yeah, there's a bit of interesting self-analysis and projection there. It's just a dog, man. Come on. He's thinking about someplace else, and there's this quote, where he could grieve in peace. Like, we get it, he's lost people. There's just no sense of subtlety here. And finally, another quote. He was still a man of honor. That desire to protect and defend, it was still in him. It was who he was, whether he liked it or not. So that is straight up telling us he's a good guy, even though he doesn't want to be. Chapter 24 is Liam again. You know, because Hannah's knocked out. Or passed out. Whichever one it is. Anyway, there's a quote. The animal was defending his mistress. Liam respected that. respected the dog. Like, it's a bit much. There's only so much humanizing you can do to an animal, even if it's a dog. At a certain point, I just expected this dog to like stand up on its hind legs and just start talking back to characters. For some reason, I pictured him wearing glasses. There's another quote here. This is a weird one. He bent over the cot and deftly unbuttoned the woman's damp coat. Why deftly? This may seem nitpicky, but like deftly means like skilled and practiced. Are they hinting that he's good at unclothing women? At a time like this? It doesn't make much sense, but it will make sense later on. Yeah, I'll get to it, don't worry. He gives the symptoms of trench foot, pale, hard, waxy-looking toes. So yeah, that's kind of cool. Putting someone's torso in a warm bath is the best way to reheat someone, but not too fast because it might cause heart failure. He puts a hot water bottle against her neck and groin, because that helps warm the body because there's major arteries there. That'll just warm the blood. He sees her shattered fingers and mentions his time in Iraq and Afghanistan. Says this is even worse, and he wonders what he's gotten himself into. That's another thing they do with these stories. They keep having these soldiers come in and be like, oh man, this is so much worse than anything I saw in the war. Again, it's a way to set the bar of like how serious the situation is. Like if you've got like just a soldier who's like PTSD, hardcore veteran, triple purple heart, and he's like, my God, this is worse than anything I've ever seen. You instantly know the situation is hardcore. So I guess that's like a shorthand. But at the same time, like you see it so often, you're just like, oh God. But the whole like he wonders what he's gotten himself into. That was actually a really good ending to the chapter. Chapter 25 is Pike. It's now day 4, and he's found the cabin. He mentions that he's noticed that Hannah fell constantly, but that she kept getting up. That's an important piece of information that just delivered there. Like she fell, but she got back up. And like that's sort of like the cornerstone of being tough and resilient. Like you can fall, that's fine, but you got to get back up. And she did that continuously. It kind of reads like he's jealous of Liam being involved. It might be like a competition to him or something. I don't know. It's weird. There's another quote. To cut out the thing that belonged to him. The thing she'd stolen. I guess he means the kid. Again, this guy's perception of pregnancy is just weird. And yeah, again, at the end of this chapter, I was wondering, is this guy written to be hypocritical and erratic? Or is it accidental? Very hard to tell. Chapter 26 is Hannah. There's a quote here. He was watching her with those steely grey-blue eyes. Intense and penetrating. Unnerving. Just remember that quote. So this book is set on like 27th, on the 12th, 24. So, not that long ago. But it was published on the 31st of the 1st, 2020. So you don't sort of see many books where they give a concrete date but also set it in the future. But the interesting thing here is she was kidnapped on Christmas Eve in 2019. So a month before the book was published, but then the time between now and then was sort of like a blank spot because she's been in a dungeon the whole time. So yeah, just like a weird situation where like I read the book around the time that it's set. That was kind of cool. Okay, so obviously Hannah has been through a lot, but at a certain point, the social anxiety becomes like just super fucking annoying. Like, again, it's understandable for what she's been through, but what it means is you're reading through page after page of really erratic behavior and just waiting for her to calm the fuck down. Like, she's obviously woken up in this room and there's a strange guy there and she's like freaking out, like trying to run to the door and she's like, ah! It's just like, okay, we know you're going to calm down eventually. Can we just gotta get there? There's a game called Telltale's The Walking Dead where you play like an 11-year-old girl. I forget her name. It's not that bad, actually. Anyway, the point is, there's another girl, she's 15, but like, she's got social anxiety as well, and she sort of freezes up and freaks out, and like, you can drag this girl through the game, and it's just always her anxiety that's getting her like near death, but no matter what you do, this chick will always die, and it will always be her own fault. You can just keep saving her life, but eventually it gets a point where like, you're out of reach for her, and she can't do it herself. It's just so annoying because like she never sort of grows. Like, okay, like you could be fearful and have anxiety. That's fine. But like part of being a character in a story is that you're meant to grow and develop and change. I mean, not always. I mean, like there's flat character arcs and whatnot. But seriously, who wants a flat character arc of being anxious the whole time? That sucks. So yeah, my point is, it's just weird that you've got these characters who are just so lost in their anxiety that they're just freaking out and you're just like, oh God. Chapter 27 is Hannah. We have a quote here. He was tall, broad-shouldered, muscular, chiseled features and those arresting grey-blue eyes. She'd been too terrified to notice before, but he was ruggedly handsome, strong, His whole body radiated power and competence. This is a fucking romance book. I looked online, and yeah, it's listed in like the women's adventure fiction. Yeah, so that explains everything. Like, I'll get into why later on, but this is a big deal about everything about this book. Just keep in mind for the rest of this book, this is a romance book with prepper stuff in it. So she lies about her car breaking down and getting lost to Liam, and he just automatically accepts it because, there's an EMP. Like, she doesn't bring up the rape dungeon, obviously, that's fine. And yeah, he explains all the powers out because of the EMP. Chapter 28 is Hannah. She mentions that her son is immensely stubborn like her, which made me wonder, why are all the women in these prepper books stubborn? Like, is that just like the go-to character trait for women? I don't know. Seems weird. I should look into it more. There's some quotes here. The cold is like a physical force. And another one. It hurt like a physical ache in her heart. So there's lots of stuff that's being like transmogrified into physical forces in this book. I don't know, like abstract ideas becoming so intense they sort of become physical. I guess that's a way to sort of convey the seriousness. But yeah, feels weird. So it turns out she had an argument with her partner and stormed off the night that she was kidnapped. And it's sort of set up so they think she abandoned them. So $10 says her husband's totally moved on and she's going to end up with Liam. Having read through the book, I'm still set that she's going to end up with Liam, but I'm not so certain about the husband. So her home, Falls Creek, is 200 miles away. That's 321 kilometers for non-seppos out there. And yeah, the chapter ends with Ghost detecting someone outside. I wonder who that could be. Chapter 29 is Liam. So obviously there's a psycho outside, but Hannah is such a wreck that she can't tell the guy that there's an obvious threat out there. This is what I mean. The anxiety gets annoying. He's carving out wood just to secure the windows. That's kind of a nice touch. Like sort of carve points and just shove it on the sides of the windows so they can't be raised. That's kind of cool. There's a prepper bag reorganization scene. There's a quote. He'd like things to be organized and easily accessible. All the preppers are just creaming themselves over that. He's got a tactical pen. I didn't even know that was a thing. That's pretty cool, actually. There's another quote. I like to be prepared. That's it. That's the whole book. That's all you need. He was a Delta operator. Sounds cool. I don't know what that is. There's another quote. After 8 years of seeing too much and doing worse. What does that mean? Like, how do you do worse than like too much? Because if you did it, you saw it. Like, it sounds cool, but it doesn't make any sense. Ugh. Anyway, here's actually something pretty cool. Well, not for him. He's got 5 crushed discs in his spine. And at that point, I rage because I'm like, get fucked. He's not doing anything. Like, I've got an L5 herniated disc, and that screwed up so many things for me. And he's got 5 crushed discs. He's not doing anything. He should be at home in a chair. Here's a weird thing, though. He's got like another mystery family member, but he's going to keep it a secret. Like, why? Who is he keeping it a secret from besides the reader? That sort of thing just sort of feels weird. Like, why would you bring it up if you're not going to talk about it? Like, it's just like, oh, it's this tantalizing little tidbit of information. It's like, oh, is it important or is it not? Just, God. Yeah, so anyway, the dog goes outside to pee, and then they do as well, but literally nothing comes of it. Okay, here's another quote. She glanced at him with those big, doleful green eyes before dropping her gaze to her clasped hands. Those eyes were disconcerting, green as moss, as the deepest forest. Yeah, remember, romance. So this snowstorm keeps going all through day 4, so they end up spending another night in this cabin. Chapter 30 is Liam, on day 5 now. There's another quote here of like, the grief. It's listed as like a visceral, physical thing. More physicality. Liam's about to bail like he's been talking about the whole time. And he leaves her a bunch of food. But he goes outside and he sees the psycho's tracks and finds a mutilated animal carcass and figures out something's going on. So he runs back inside. Chapter 31 is Liam again. Hannah's back in the cabin. She sees the dead animal and just freaks out. She's too anxious to talk and he's too much of a goody-goody to leave. Eventually, he goes back and she reveals the story of being like, oh, by the way, there's a psycho stalking me. And yeah, Liam's dead sister-in-law convinces him to stay. Chapter 32 is Hannah. We have a quote. She didn't want to rely on anyone but herself. So, they're setting up that she's very self-reliant. Okay, so we have another quote here, but this one's a big one. So I'm just going to try and read through it, and I'm not going to edit out any mistakes because this one's a doozy. But there's a point of why I'm reading this out. I'll get to it. It wasn't simply that Liam Coleman was a man, and therefore a fit protector. This particular man was a soldier, a warrior. Strength and power radiated off him. It was in the way he held his pistol low and ready, the wicked-looking knife at his belt, how he moved with precision, confidence, and control, how he was always watching, always assessing, always alert. He was a man who knew what he was doing. So, that's quite a gushing character descriptor there. But then the next paragraph starts with, she felt a flutter in her belly. And then they start talking about the baby. But that's not the baby fluttering. She's been in a rape dungeon for years. The first guy she meets, she's like, oh. Yeah, $10 says this woman's husband ends up getting killed off because she's going to end up with this guy. Another quote, he was looking at her with pity. She despised that look, hated how weak and pathetic it made her feel. She hasn't seen anyone besides Psycho for 5 years. Why would she know what that look looks like? So that was aimed at women readers. Female readers, I've met women before. I know things. Yeah, so that sort of feels like it's a line that's aimed at women who've maybe felt someone pity them before and, something they can relate to. Because, yeah, again, this wasn't written for dudes, it was written for women. So a proper tip kind of feels like a follow-on from the warming too quickly in clothes earlier. Sweating and then sweat evaporating lowers the body temperature and risks hypothermia. So, proper tip. Okay, another quote. She felt him, italicized. She felt him in the ache of her broken fingers, in the icy pit of her belly. Again, yeah, things are very physical in this story. Chapter 33 is Liam again. We're now on day 6. They've been traveling south for 2 days. He's got caffeine pills in his go bag. I remember caffeine pills. Man, they're good. There's a quote here. The woman, Hannah, came up beside him. She was short, the top of her head just below his shoulder. Everything about her was small and fragile and vulnerable. His heart beat a little harder. So that's the one quote. Then he just starts talking about how he has to protect her. They keep joining these two sort of separate things into one and just, yeah, it's an interesting trick. They find a house and they're trying to figure out how to approach it, but it's clearly occupied. Another quote. He saw it again. That flash of something. Stubbornness. A hint of defiance. A glimpse of who she might have been before that psychopath got his claws into her. She didn't like to be told no. So yeah, that's basically what every woman wants to be told they are. Strong, defiant, stubborn. Go girl. Yeah, this is a chick's book. And yeah, these two are so busy arguing that the owner sneaks up on them with a shotgun. Chapter 34 is Liam. The homeowner is an old woman. She is hard as nails, of course. She's Hispanic, one of the few minorities I've seen so far in these prepper stories. I think there was one in October 4, one of the neighbor's son's girlfriends. How many degrees of minority is that? So far. And she appeared 2 pages before the end. Yeah, so they're pretty rare in these stories. Yeah, so this old woman's been robbed before. She killed the last lot that tried, and now she's preparing to kill these two. It's all pretend tense, though. With Liam preparing to kill her. But then Hannah just sort of jumps out and they bond over dogs and the whole thing dissolves really quickly. Yeah, this is the old woman, Kiki or Cece, I don't know, whichever one that is. This is one of those situations where the good guys have dogs trope literally saves the day. They try to hand wave it away by having Liam be all shocked at how quickly things de-escalated. But it's kind of the most ridiculous thing in this book so far. Very short chapter though. Chapter 35 is Hannah. It's revealed that Alaska and Hawaii still have power along with the UK. So it's just an EMP event localized to continental USA. So not a real apocalypse. It's revealed that Hannah always had 4 weeks of food stored in the garage. So she was basically a prepper before all of this. There's a quote. She longed to be home so badly. It hurt like a physical ache in her chest. Again, physical. She mentions that small towns might last longer if they band together, or if someone remembers the old ways of doing things. There's that callback to lost knowledge and the old ways of, how the country used to be. Cece Kiki's generator is old, so it still works. And she's got a ham radio. And apparently preppers have got older ones that can be protected. I don't know, that's kind of cool. Kisi, she's got some meds because she's got a heart condition. So, they're going to run out eventually. It's not going to be a problem though. Pike is referred to as him again. And yeah, the chapter ends with Kiki deciding to give Hannah something. Chapter 36 is Hannah. Cece plans to give her some women's clothes. She refuses a nightgown because it's easier to run in clothes. A nightgown makes you vulnerable. That seems a bit excessive. The old woman also gives her a compact Ruger American 45. I don't know what that is. Hannah flushes with trepidation when Cece mentions that Liam is handsome. You've been in the rape dungeon for 4 or 5 years. an EMP has just wiped out your nation, and an old woman says the man next to you, who you met like a few days ago, is handsome, and you're like, priorities, woman. It's revealed that this isn't the first baby she's had to Pike. Kind of concerning. And yeah, Cece gives a speech about having the proper kind of fear and tells her that the gun will help with that. So I don't know what that means, but yeah, fair enough. Chapter 37 is Pike. It's day 7 now. He's tracked them to Cece's house. There's tracks everywhere. Then they obscured the real tracks with the pine branches. So he breaks into the house and tries to sneak up on her, but she's been waiting for him with a shotgun. Again, it feels like this chapter is very short because it leads straight into Chapter 38 is Pike again, and Cece misses with a shotgun. How do you miss with a shotgun in a house? Anyway, she's getting fucked up, but she's all like strong and defiant because she's a, I don't take no crap kind of woman. How do I put this? I'm not woke by any sense, but it's kind of concerning that you got like the one minority character in the whole book and you have like some white guy come along and just start fucking her up. Like, come on guys. What year is it? Chapter 29 is Liam. They just start going over the night they spent at Cece's, talking about the food she cooked. There's a quote, as enjoyable as it was, he hadn't allowed himself to relax, not for 1 second. Did he sleep? The next note is, apparently, no, he didn't. So apparently he went into some sort of like military catnap where he just shut down everything but his awareness. So I don't know if that's a real thing, but yeah, it sounds like some Adeptus Astartes bullshit. They start going over how thorough they were, but we already know that Cece's dead, so this is all pointless. It's like, why are they wasting our time with this? There's more food talk. Hannah doesn't complain once as they march through the snow. She's just that tough. There's a quote. She kept going, jaw clenched, a line between her brows, her eyes almost glassy with the intensity of her focus. Jesus. He felt a pang of pity for her and a growing, if grudging, respect. They talk about finding accommodation in a nearby town, about possibly getting a hotel if they're lucky. But then the next line is like a new paragraph. It's all on its own. It's like, Liam had the cash if they needed it. Like a weird writing gripe, but that's not worth its own paragraph. Like it's not that dramatic. Oh man, we could really use a hotel. Liam has the cash if they need it. They break for lunch and he has flashbacks to Chicago. Apparently his sister-in-law was like looking up to him as she lay dying. So I'm guessing his brother died first. And he was left, with his mistress and, weird situation. Very dramatic. And there's another quote. Her eyes were as green as the fir and spruce trees surrounding them. They pinned him, steady and unblinking, disquieting. It's romance. Yeah, so this actually got kind of annoying. Like, they're trying to guilt trip this PTSD vet for wanting to be alone. Like, they place him with this rape dungeon prisoner. Like, she hasn't given up on humanity yet. And she's like, she keeps like pestering him. He's like, nah, man, this sucks. I just want to get out of here. And she's like, no, I haven't given up, so you can't either. It's like, fuck off. Like, we're not doing the same thing. You came into my life, lady. Okay, this quote's weird. 2 damaged people just trying to survive this damn cold. Like, what cold, Mr. or Mrs. Narrator? We're not there with you guys. Like, oh god, the writing sometimes. Like, okay, the writing in this book is mostly like really, really good. But there's a few like slips where you're just like, what happened there? I guess it's more noticeable because everything else is so good. Okay, not good. It's well crafted. I'm not going to say good, but yeah, you know what I mean. So Liam's more scared of going into town than the actual psycho chasing them. Chapter 40 is Pike. He mentions that the old woman held out longer than anyone he'd killed before because, they've really got to be talking up this female side characters. He stole Cece's snowmobile and he's getting into town first and he's going to set up an ambush. This was a 2-page chapter, so again, super short. Chapter 41 is Hannah. They arrive in the village of Branch. So Ghost runs off. It's not really explained why. I'm sure the next part will just be easier with him gone, so he just needs to disappear and do some dog things. But yeah, he'll show up in the nick of time, I'm sure. Liam sets up a rally point on, the off chance that they get separated. She was alive because of him. She'd come to rely on his quiet, steady presence. Are all romance books like this? Organized raiders are attacking the town. Somehow Liam already knows their intent to systematically bleed the town dry in this single raid. So yeah, the town's getting raided by like a neighboring town, and they try and hand wave it away. Like, it gets pretty dramatic, like a week in, and like you're just going and attacking the neighboring town. But again, they try and hand wave it away by drawing attention to it. Chapter 42 is Hannah. There's a quote. He was studying her, examining her, assessing her strength. They overhear a conversation between two people, and it's two mothers using their children to sort of justify their positions. You know, like, I'm here to take your stuff. I got kids to feed. It's like, I got kids to feed too. You know, because, you know, she's a mum. She wants to get back to her kid. You know, it's all related. Hannah's freaking out again, which, you know, sort of valid in this situation. They overheard one of the names of the raiders, Thacker. Like, typically you don't give a bad guy's name, especially like just a grunt, but whatever. It's kind of weird that like the mother raider was like very sincere and desperate, because again, like she's just like a normal person from like a neighboring town. Like they've run out of food, so they're attacking the next town to get food. So for her, it's like, I need food. Like I don't like this, but I got to do it for my kid. But the guys in the group are like gleefully partaking, and like they're just joking around, having fun during the raid. Like very sort of different raiders here. There's a quote here. She hated her own hopelessness. It's like, yeah, I hate it too. God. Chapter 43 is Hannah. Liam kills one of the raiders. I made a note here that the raiders sound too evil. They're sort of excited about what they're doing. I feel like desperate people would have been more interesting than like just unleashed evil people. We've already got the psycho character for that angle. Like, why do we need like these random townsfolk just like going crazy? Liam and Hannah decide to hide in the library because it has nothing the raiders would want. Like, not like you, dear reader. You're an avid bibliophile. You would never be a raider, would you? Chapter 44 is Hannah. They've decided to set up in the library for the night. They're hoping that the raiders will leave soon so they can start a fire. But my thought here was, what happens when the raiders leave and then they start a fire, and then the townsfolk who survived find two strangers camped out in the library? There's a quote here. The way he killed that man, his movements so agile and quick, like a great jungle cat, a panther or a tiger, a creature whose very nature was to kill. Yeah, so the author keeps trying to show us that like Hannah doesn't trust Liam and Liam doesn't care what Hannah thinks, but at the same time they keep trying to like push this budding romance on us. So it's kind of weird. Again, she's just come out of a rape dungeon. I don't think she should be having a romance at this point in time. Like, that's just my personal opinion. There's another quote here. He would remain awake and alert so she could rest. Always the soldier, watching over her. It's been like a week. Yeah, she wakes up and someone is standing over her, telling her not to make a sound, and then the chapter just ends. So, kind of a cliffhanger. Chapter 45 is Pike. He's running with his fake cop routine. He enlists the aid of the raiders to find Hannah and Liam. So it's sort of set up to look like he's getting a bad deal, but he's planning to kill everyone. So, you know. Chapter 46 is Hannah. It's day 8. They left us with a cliffhanger before. They jump to the psycho, then back to Hannah, and the guy standing over her is just Liam. So it's kind of annoying. He leaves her to go deal with the raiders, and she has like a freak out session because she can't pick up a beanbag with a mangled hand. So yeah, she's kind of annoying at this point. Chapter 47 is Liam. We get a bunch of technical talk about how he's stabbing his knife into the base of this guy's skull and scrambling his medulla oblongata, taking out his like motor function. Kind of feels like a weird prepper tip. It's sort of like, hey, did you guys know if you stab a guy right here, he won't be able to move? The more you know. He takes out the next guy by pretending to be the first guy to get close, then slitting his carotid artery. He gets the dude's blood on his face, but he's too cool to care, because, you know, who's worried about diseases in the post-apocalyptic world? We get 2 names, Ray and Mason. It's kind of weird to get the names of goons, but whatever. And I feel like we could have killed the 3rd guy in this chapter, but I guess that's going to be left until later. Chapter 48 is Liam again. The 3rd guy makes a run for it and jumps through a plate glass window. Yeah, that's not good. Don't ever do that. Like, that can kill you. Liam gives chase. He jumps out the window and jars his spine as well. So, you know, that's a nice touch. Again, I've got an injured spine, so I know how easy that can happen. I'm not jumping out of no damn window. He has to chase him instead of shooting him in the back. There's a quote. What he'd lost in speed, he would make up for in persistence, stamina, and sheer determination. That's not how chases work. There's a name fuck up. Mason and Pete instead of Mason and Ray. Like, why would you give us the names if you're just going to get them wrong later on? Kind of weird. Chapter 49 is Hannah. It's 2 pages long. Hannah's still in the library, and she hears the clicking of a cigarette lighter. I wonder who it could be. Chapter 50 is Hannah again. There's a quote. Hannah had to move. She had to move right frickin' now. Yeah, I don't sort of understand like the style of writing where it's like solid through most of it, but then it'll just sort of slip into this other style in an attempt to add like intensity or familiarity. And it sort of just breaks the immersion. I don't know, it's weird. But yeah, basically this is just 5 pages of Psycho Cat and Hysterical Mouse running around the library. And yeah, meh. Chapter 51 is Hannah. So imagine 300 pages of like Theon Greyjoy at his lowest. That's basically what this chick is. For those of you who've played or seen The Last of Us, you know where like Ellie is running from David through the burning restaurant? Imagine if she's just like freaking out the whole time. That's basically what the scene is. That scene was really good because Ellie was like hunting. She was going after that guy, at least in the game. I don't know about the show. Anyway, the point is, being scared in this situation doesn't really do much. It kind of just drags her down as a character. Anyway, there's a quote here. He had killed Liam. Liam was dead. She was completely and utterly alone. But like on the opposite page, we see Liam's name as the chapter heading, so we know he's alive. This is just weird. Chapter 52 is Liam. So he's outnumbered, and he lays down some cover fire and runs. But I don't think you do that. I actually looked this up. Like, you cover other people, not yourself. I think, like, for yourself, it's like suppressing fire. I don't know. I might be wrong on that. Like, I read it and I was like, wait, who is he covering? He's getting chased through a bakery, and he's getting, like, guilty flashbacks. It's kind of funny, like, he's in a bakery, and he has a guilty flashback about the bun in the oven that he put in his brother's wife. Liam refused to fail anyone else. He would kill every man in here with his bare hands before he did that. What about the female bandits? Remember the one we heard at the start? Is he going to kill her too? Chapter 53 is Hannah. She's getting beaten and tormented by Pike, but there's also this weird flashback that sort of bleeds into the present, and it's hard to tell what's going on. She's shocked to hear that he killed Cece. She pulls a gun out, but she can't fire it, so she gets beaten more. So, if you got to write something like, and this is a quote, she was utterly worthless, just a victim, nothing more. Like, you should try and make sure the reader doesn't agree with you. Because, like, I've read this book, I'm like, oh God, I hate this woman. Jesus, like, I get it. Like, it's really unfortunate what she's been through, but like, oh my God. Yeah, so I kind of don't care about her, and I don't care about the guy trying to kill her. Like, they both just seem like losers. They're not interesting. Chapter 54 is Liam. He's found a choke point and he's killing a bunch of mooks. One of the bad guys, his name goes from The Brawler to just Brawler, which, again, feels like a small nitpick, but it's really ugly to read. He kills a guy by crushing his windpipe. So, like, the guy doesn't suffocate to death. It's literally his windpipe getting crushed that kills him. I don't think it works like that. Chapter 55 is Hannah. Ghost is back just in the nick of time. There's a quote, Ghost growled and snarled with a ferocity that Hannah had never seen. She's known him for like 8 days. Yeah, Ghost fucks up the Psycho fucks up Ghost, Liam shows up, Psycho runs away. Yeah, so Liam shows up and just like the words used, she's basically creaming herself. And like, I'm not going to write a quote about that and like have to read it out, but yeah, like just go read it if you want to, but it's a bit much. But yeah, so basically Ghost is alive and Liam runs off to finish things with the Psycho. Chapter 56 is Liam. They spend 2.5 pages of the chase between him and Pike, and then he just turns back to go back for Hannah. That's a lot of time to waste. There's a quote, The Psycho had hurt her, but she was on her feet. She was tougher than he'd realized. A survivor. That's another one of those things that like every woman wants to see herself as. Like, you know, the survivor. I can stand up against anything. This is not a book for men. He keeps talking about past guilt, and they keep hammering us over the head with it. And they plan to steal some snowmobiles from the raiders to make their escape. Chapter 57 is Liam. We got a quote here. He saw her clearly in that instant, meek and damaged, but also tough. She endured. It was who she was. He saw it shining bright and determined in her eyes. She was like him, a survivor. That just feels like a reiteration of what we had in the last chapter. Kind of feels like a bit much here. And yeah, there's like 4 paragraphs of him lining up a shot. Chapter 58 is Hannah. He shoots someone with his pistol, even though the raid is away. Even though he was previously stated that pistols are useless beyond like 15 feet. Then he picks up the rifle from someone he just killed, but like he could have done that earlier. And they flee town on a stolen snowmobile. Chapter 59 is Pike. Pike is raging about getting run off, starts scheming and fuming on his own. Again, not a real formidable foe, seeing this side of him. It doesn't make me like see him as like a legit threat. So apparently the big reveal here is that he's from the same town as Hannah, and he usually kidnaps people that nobody will miss. But this time he wanted to kidnap someone who would be missed so that he could watch the chaos unfold in everyone's lives. Apparently he like has a personal thing against her husband, and he loved that the husband was prime suspect in her case. And he plans to keep chasing her, because of course he does. Chapter 60 is Pike. He kills a raider, gets his gun back, and forces another raider to take him to a doctor because of all the injuries that Ghost gave him. Chapter 61 is Hannah. They're riding hard to get away. It's pre-dawn on New Year's Eve. They're sneaking up on a place, and she says this about Liam. He didn't use his flashlight or approach the property head-on like most people. He was sneaky, an invisible threat. You know, kind of like the Psycho. There's more tree talk, and he starts giving her first aid, and she says his fingers were calloused, but gentle. And he's not going to sleep again because the romantic interest never sleeps. Chapter 62 is Hannah. It's just a flashback of how she got taken. So she got married in her teens when she got knocked up, and she gave up her uni degree to be a mother. So it mentions a fight she had with her husband about a spare tire, and how she wanted to go back to uni, but he wanted her to be a stay-at-home mum, but not for sexist reasons. So she storms off, the car broke down, she had no phone battery, and the Psycho stops by. Turns out he was the brother of her husband's best friend. Weird connection, but okay, sure, why not? And that's the chapter. Chapter 63 is Hannah. There's a weird scene where it's revealed that she doesn't know how to work the safety on her gun, which means she technically did pull the trigger on Pike, but it just fucked up and it's really not her fault, I promise, guys. I guess that's sort of something. But yeah, then she asks if Liam can train her, and then just ends on that. Okay, so let's take a look at the writing style of this book. So it's very, very direct, no nonsense. The genre seems to rely heavily on telling instead of showing, which, you know, is typically the opposite of what you should be doing as a writer, but whatever. It's a concerning tale about the audience at any rate. So I haven't read any romance novels, but I'm guessing a lot of the traits from that have carried over to this one. Like the paragraphs of inner turmoil being explored, a focus on relationships, good or bad, between characters, the drip-fed revelations about these mysteriously tragic characters. Like, it all feels very romancy to someone who is not a romance reader. Like, it's not something I typically encounter in the books I read. There's lots of prepper tips given in this book, but they're all delivered really smoothly, and they don't sort of break the narrative. So, yeah, props to that. They do really well there. Extremely short chapters. Again, I'm not sure if that's a romance genre thing, but it felt kind of weird, but it made things easier at the same time. Like, it felt like I was doing really, really well at the kids' table. Yeah, the dog was a bit too humanized. The focus on trees was odd, like they just kept coming back to it. And yeah, it was clean. There's like little, if any, swearing. Okay, time for the tropes. Good guys have dogs. Dogs are a judge of character. Strong and independent woman ×2. Lots of prepper tips, at least in the first half. They sort of disappeared in the second half. We've got a special forces dude. Characters are away from home when the EMP hits, and they have to travel back home the hard way. Guns. Lots of guns. Society falls apart very quickly. There's an EMP-proof older car. There's no real government response, not even by the police, at least not directly. Like, you hear Liam talking about it at like the gas stations and all that sort of stuff. Poor people end up being a major threat, and the unprepared are shown to suffer during the event. Okay, so time for my thoughts. Obviously, this is a romance novel with prepper stuff in it. I'll talk more about that later. The story keeps pausing to reflect on how much everyone is impressed by Hannah. The special forces guy, he is cliche as all hell. His personal life was a bit more interesting than his career, but his injuries were the most interesting thing about him. Besides that, it's just like, ooh, special forces guy. Like, can we just have like a normal person in these books? You know, having an actual minority character is kind of cool. Typically, these books are wider than a bukkake party. So, this is obviously set out to be aimed directly at women. The author has put a female character in like the worst situation imaginable, like it's a literal rape dungeon, where she's systematically broken down, but we're inevitably going to see her rebuild herself and come out the other side better and stronger with a new husband. So the obvious hidden/not hidden message here is that yes, you can still be lovable if you go through something as horrid as this, and you can find your way back. So that's sort of like the not so subtle message that's resonating out here. You may have seen the movie 2012 with John Cusack. It's just disaster porn. He's like the dad in the story, but he's been divorced from his wife. And like, there's this nice guy who's like a pilot who saves his ex-wife and kids and him. And like, he's just like a nice guy who's been like raising his kids. And he's just like an honest, nice guy. But because John Cusack is like the main character, he needs to get the girl in the end. So this ultra nice husband and stepfather to his kids just has to get killed off like right at the end just to make way for the romantic plot to be resolved. But like, in terms of like story, it kind of, yeah, okay, makes sense that way. But at the same time, like, that fucking sucks, man. Like, you get killed off just so like your wife or husband can go get with someone else. Like, that's terrible. Oh my God. So I actually felt like the execution of this book was like expert on like multiple levels. Like, every trope was on point. The writing was mostly tight. The only real major issue here is that like nothing is resolved at the end. The bad guy's still out there and they never made it home. Like, it's not really a complete story. I looked it up and like, apparently this is like a long series. It doesn't really feel like there was any resolution in this. Like, they didn't sort of get to like a noticeable sort of like point where, yeah, they're just stuck on the side of the road. It doesn't really feel like the end of anything. I think the weakest part of the story is Pike's sections. Because again, like, we get to see inside his head. We get to see what sort of person he really is. And it's just not impressive. Like, obviously as a person, but as like an antagonist either. He's just like a whiny little bitch. It ruins it. This would have been so much better if you just cut those sections out and there's just like this cold, methodical psycho just like stalking this woman who just does not give up. That would have been cool. So the thing is that I think this is like the first of these prepper books that is like genuinely a good book. But the only issue here is that it's also a romance book, and that sort of skews things in a lot of ways that you might not be aware of. So there's a service you can get as an indie author. It's called K-Lytics. And so they sort of break down and analyze all the data from Amazon, like the genres, like what's selling, what's not, what's going up, what's going down. It's just like market information. So indie authors can sort of like tailor what they're working on to sort of meet market expectations. Now, the biggest genres from what I remember are like romance, science fiction, and fantasy. But romance just blows everything else out of the water like you would not believe. It's such a problem that they have to highlight the romance books in these like K-Lytics reports, because if you follow that, it just ruins all the data. So they sort of have to like just highlight, say like, hey, this is done really well, but it's also romance. So just exclude that if that's not what you're after. Because the problem is like, you can have like a prepper book that's also a romance book. And because it's like just making bank on the romance side of things, it blows it out of the water in prepper fiction as well. And so if you look at like the top rankings in most Amazon categories, a lot of them are romance books. And it's not because they're good in the, genre you're looking at. It's because they're really good romance books. So yeah, you got to keep an eye out for that. So basically what that means here is that I'm going to take what works from this book, but I have to take it all with a grain of salt as well. It's really well made and it's got over like 30,000 ratings. But it's not because it's a really great prepper book. It's because it's got like a massive romance readership. So that kind of taints it a bit. Like technically, like I should probably disqualify it, but like this is not that organized in terms of like planning. So I'm not going to do that. So I'll take what works and just ignore the rest, because I'm not going to have like steamy little like eye to eye contact scenes and all that sort of stuff. Like, oh God. Okay, so that's it for this episode. I could go on about what I'm going to do next episode. I have a plan, but who knows what'll happen. We'll get to that when we get to it. And yeah, so this is the point where I say you should like, share, and subscribe, all those good things. If you have any questions about this book or any other post-apocalyptic content, please feel free to hit me up. Also, yeah, sign up to my newsletter. But yeah, have a good one and take it easy.